jazz. I'm getting kind of a kick out of this chill music on such intense backbreaking work. So my name is Colt. I run Colt Coates Forged Ironwork down here in Atlanta, Georgia. I am up here at my dad's shop in Virginia right now doing this table, who owns Dancing Pig Forge. Everything I learned is because of my dad. My whole family, in fact, does this work. My brother, my dad, and myself. And you can go check out their work. They have a YouTube channel and a Facebook page, Dancing Pig Forge. So this is a table that I'm building for this awesome customer that selected this piece of pecan wood from Atlanta Custom Tables, which was actually cut into two pieces. And her and her husband wanted this these two pieces supported individually under a table base. So we came up with this idea of making a table base that looked like tree limbs, kind of an organic look. The table is pecan wood, so we're trying to kind of make it look like a pecan tree with the pecan leaves. There it is. Everything I do, I have to draw out. That's sort of my template so I can get the right height. Just kind of get an overall feel of what's going on. The legs were made out of 1.5 inch solid round, just mild carbon steel, just hot rolled. And we're putting it into the forge. So this is called upsetting. And so if you, what it's doing is it's squashing the metal out, kind of mushrooming it out. And if you go out and look at a tree and look at its stump down low where the roots go into the ground, you can see that the tree is kind of squashed out. And I'm trying to make this leg look like that. And I'm just kind of hammering it, trying to let the metal just kind of naturally curve the way that it wants to. I need to make sure that it is flat on the bottom so you don't see any gaps under it, sitting flat on the floor. And that's kind of what I'm doing here with this little hammer, just trying to make it, get all the high spots out of where it sits on the floor. Took a lot of heats to do this. It's me burning my hand. Stuff was very hard to hold because it was so hot. The heat just radiated through the whole piece. One down. So this is my cross brace. I'm having to taper this. So this is a piece of 1 inch solid, and I'm hammering this out on a big blue power hammer. This is run by air. It's got a big air compressor, and it feeds into this ram cylinder, this pneumatic ram cylinder, and it comes down with controllable force. You work it with a foot pedal. So I'm having to taper this down. I want it to taper down to about 3/8 of an inch. So that I can make it look like a vine eventually wrapping around the legs. And so the way you usually do that is you want it to come down to a square. So you take this round bar and you square it first, and then you taper it out, and then you can round it back. So most of it I can round back on the power hammer. But here, sometimes the power hammer is a little too intense for the small stuff. This is many heats later, and I'm sitting here just trying to round the very end. So I got that tapered from 1 inch all the way down to about 3/8 of an inch. So here is one of the legs to the table. This is a piece of the 1.5 inch. The right side of that piece is actually the upset. and the left side is what I'm holding, which will be the limbs, the tree limbs. And so I put in a fullering die, a really sharp fullering die, and I'm trying to texture bark, and I had to do this on every piece, the cross braces, the tree trunk legs. So it's a vertical, kind of like a wedge shape, or like an axe shape, not near as sharp as that, but long ways. I'm putting this texture in here vertically, and it kind of makes it look like tree bark. There's a couple other ways you can do this, but this one was my favorite for this particular application. I thought it looked a little bit more elegant. Extremely hard to hold this in the power hammer. Trying to hammer it on the stump to try and add some quirkiness into it. And I'm trying to texture what I couldn't get with the power hammer with the actual hammer. Now I'm measuring how high I need to make the bend. Lots of thinking. So here are 4 legs that I did. This was about 1 full day of forging. Here it is, one of the legs compared to my drawing. They don't look all the same, but I just wanted about this much movement in each leg. And now I'm marking where I'm going to split the top. How high up I need to split it. Sometimes the metal gets so hot I can't hold it and I have to quench it. And here's the split. This is what really makes it look like tree limbs. Usually you would punch this, but it would have taken too long. I cut it with a saw. Trying to spread it open. See, because what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to taper one side and then fold that over out of the way and then taper another side and then fold them back together and then shape them. So what I'm trying to do here is spread them enough, and I'm going to take a pair of vice grips or something, and I'm going to bend one side all the way over so I can work one side and taper it and texture it. So there it is. I'm tapering one side of it. You can see the other piece that's folded down out of the way. And this is me trying to taper way out enough to make it look like a tree limb, a tree that has a split in it, as you would see in the natural realm. I'm doing the squaring. It doesn't want to square for me because it's a half moon shape, and that's just very difficult shape to work with, but I eventually get it. It took quite a few heats. Trying to hold it. All it does is burn your hand the whole time. So there's one limb tapered out, textured. Now the difficult part about this is I had to round it to where it meets the tabletop, and my goal was 18 inches. The tabletop was 1.5 inches, so I wanted this to hit 18 inches. So I'm trying to find my point. I had a little mark on there, but I lost it. So I'm just trying to kind of guess where 18 inches would be. Starting to look like a tree. And there it is on the template. Some fine tuning with the torch. Sometimes the forge is just too intense and you don't need all that heat. Trying to get some movement out of that tip. Sometimes the hardest thing about trying to make art is to try and not to make art. Everything artistic is based off of something in the natural. It's just our interpretation of something in the natural and how it makes us feel. So those two high humps is what is gonna meet the tabletop. There it is, there's my line. That's how it's gonna look. And I have to do the other side. So I tapered out the other side. And I'm basically shaping this the same way. It has to make a 90-degree angle when that one leg is standing up. Since that tabletop comes in two pieces, the customers did not want any metal to be shown as far as bracing is concerned. Under the two pieces, they wanted a gap in between the two pieces of wood. So this is one leg trying to hold up one half. That's why I had to split it like that. There it is. That is two legs. This also took roughly another day to shape the legs. Here's another leg being drawn out on the power hammer. We're not doing a split on this one. This power hammer is a lifesaver. You just cannot work this big stuff without a power hammer. This is very heavy. It doesn't look heavy, but it is very, very heavy. Here's leg number 4. Tapering that down, 1.5 inches all the way down to about 3/8 of an inch on the very tip. You can see it kind of drawing out there a little bit. And it's getting there. Back into the forge for another heat. Quenching it so it doesn't burn my hand. So I can hold it. And we're gonna shape this one. Again, gotta try to make it meet 18 inches where that first curve is. And then just trying to put the right amount of movement in it to where it looks pleasing to the eye. Another leg. There it is. Standing up straight. Looks like the feet are flat. And here's my cross piece, and this is extremely difficult to hold. It's very heavy. You can only do just a little bit at a time. It doesn't want to hammer that tree bark texture in there that I was trying to do, trying to carry the theme of that tree bark texture to every piece. This is basically going to be my vine, my centerpiece. As you can see, it kind of looks like a spear. There are all my components. These center braces on the left side and the legs are on the right side. There's the tree bark texture. A lot of scale falls off when you're heating them over and over and over. So I drew this out on the table, and I had to try and place my legs where I thought they looked the best. I did play with the idea of trying to make every leg sit in a different place, but since all the tree branches and the legs were so erratic, I figured there needed to be some symmetry in this piece, because even though nature sometimes seems random, there is symmetry in nature all over the place, and so I did square the legs up and put them all evenly. Okay, I got my legs in, and now let's work on the centerpiece. I had to jig up a little jig to wrap the centerpiece. I was thinking about a vine, and I wanted to wrap it because vines, you know, they flow and crawl and wrap and twist, and I wanted to make it look like that. So I put a piece here and tried to wrap it. This is the moment I knew I effed up. Sometimes these things just don't want to wrap. Sometimes you have to come up with ways to make them wrap tight. It's the way it naturally wants to go, is just do a big loop. But that doesn't look good. We want a nice tight wrap. So I brought the torch out again to do what the forge could not do. Finally bringing it around. Trying to make it look straight. See, because now it looks awkward because you just have a big loop and there's no movement in your pieces coming off of the loop. So I need to figure out how to give it some movement in the right place. Trying to put a little bend here to where it looks like a little bit more natural. One thing I don't show in this video is how much head scratching I do. It's so much time thinking and figuring it out. Now I have the limbs a little bit more even with the twist, or the loop. Okay, see if it's straight. Kind of don't want it to be perfectly straight, but I want it to be straight enough. So there it is. Those are my cross braces. One is just straight and it's just kind of speared through there. The other one is looped, and I'm clamping it at a height to what looks most pleasing to the eye, and I came up with 7 inches according to the golden ratio. It's an 18-inch table. I went up about 7 inches. I kind of figured it to be about that. I use the golden ratio a lot when I'm doing this kind of work, because sometimes you just can't make things look pleasing your natural, sometimes you need a little bit of help with some good old-fashioned math. Tacking them in place, I did hide these welds. The customer did actually ask me if it's going to hold together, and I imagine that's because she didn't see any welds on it, but I did weld this pretty solid, but I tried my best to hide all the welds. And here we are doing the wrap. Usually when you do these wraps, you have to do them with a torch. I mean, you can put things in the forge and wrap them, but it's easier if you can get that fire really close to the pivot point and stretch the metal around that leg, and it'll make it wrap very nice and tight. Some people actually do their real joinery like this, so they have no choice but to wrap it tight. They can't have any looseness. I did not rely on this wrap to be my actual joinery. I did a little bit, but I mainly put some welds on there. Again, you can't see them unless you really look for it. There it is. One wrap down, 4 wraps down. Alright, now we have to make the leaves. I did not do my research on pecan leaves. I found out there's about 1,000 of them. I thought it was going to be 1 or 2 leaves, but it wasn't. There's about 10 leaves on one branch or stalk or whatever you call it. So I'm making a leaf. I taper down the very tip, make a little point there, because that's what leaves do. They point on the end. And then I'm flattening this out. The funny thing about doing work like this is you sometimes will just go outside and spend a lot of time just looking at stuff in the yard. Just looking at leaves and looking at how trees are shaped and looking at the tree trunks and the way the bark looks and just looking at an actual tree, and you look kind of dumb out there just staring at stuff like that, but you're just trying to make it look like that. More texture. Just trying to get a good leaf shape. These are probably the more easy leaves to do. They were fairly small. I had to make quite a few of them. It took a while to do. Trying to give it a little personality here. Maybe roll the tip over. Fold up the ends. And there it is. Here's one leaf. Now I have to cut that off, and I have to make a little stem. There's a bunch of them. So I did wound up welding these leaves onto this branch, which I usually always like to find some other form of joinery, but I did weld them, and so I'm taking this little torch here. This is kind of like a little trick, and I'm melting the weld. And I'm melting the weld so much to where it just looks like there's no weld. You can see the sparks flying off of there. That means my metal is at its melting point. and I'm melting a little puddle there to where it kind of makes the weld disappear, because I don't want a big old clunky weld on there. There is the finished table. Cross your fingers. I have to put the top on it. I had to measure all of those bins. All of those little bins on the tops there have to meet 18 inches, and the table has to sit flat. So at this point, I am back in Atlanta. I drove back to Atlanta to finish it off. I'm putting some holes in here to fasten the tabletop to. Got it flipped upside down. And now I'm wire brushing it. What that does is it brings out a lot of the shininess of the metal. And you can see all the highlights of your hammer marks. And you know, you spend all this time putting the texture in. So this is how I usually finish all of these products. Even if they're going outside, I found a way to clear coat it in a way to where it won't rust, because I am a firm believer in never painting your work. Paint just hides all the texture, it hides all the beauty. I think it's a sin. In fact, I don't even offer painting unless it's a very specific application. So here I'm actually putting the finish on here. This is wax, beeswax, mineral spirits is kind of a little concoction, and I'm rubbing this on here, and the torch kind of makes it melt, and it gets all down in the crevices, and it makes it easy to kind of, you know, rub all over the piece. Trying to get all the wax and all those little crevices. Coats the metal. It does darken it a little bit, but it also makes it shiny, more shiny usually. I think it's just one of my most favorite finishes. There's also boiled linseed oil that looks really nice. And there's kind of what it looks like. Alright guys, well here I am, driving on my way to Atlanta Tables to put the top on here. Let's see what it looks like. Thank you for watching. Big thanks to Atlanta Custom Tables for this awesome piece of pecan wood, and big thanks to my customers for trusting me with this project.